Moving on, we have the very last panel discussion of the QCC Summit. The theme of the panel discussion is advancing security in digital transformation with data, analytics, and AI. Let me graciously introduce our dignitaries of the panel. Our very first eminent panelist is Mr. Samson Tingbani, Head of IRR 2.0, IT Applications Training, Master Data and Reporting, Middle East and Africa at DHL Global Forwarding. Our second eminent panelist is Mr. Shafiullah Ismail. He is the Vice President, Head Information Security, Governance and Risk from a leading global investment firm. Our third eminent panelist is Mr. Mohammed H. AlAbbadi, Senior Cybersecurity Professional from a confidential entity. Our third eminent panelist is Mr. Arshad Siddiquie, Information Technology Senior Security Engineer from a leading fertilizer company, QATAR. And our eminent panel moderator is Mr. Ziauddin Ansari, Head of Cyber Defense Center, a leading Islamic bank. All the best to the eminent panelists, and over to you, Zia.
Yeah, hi, Bridget. Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Am I audible?
Yes, we can see you, we can hear you. Thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you. So first of all, let me just thank you, Bridget, and the overall team for organizing this summit and picking up this important topic for today's panel discussion. The topic is advancing security and digital transformation with data analytics and AI. So it's very important because the organizations moving towards cloud, organizations adopting digital transformation, adopting data analytics and AI to advance and to progress and to move ahead with that speed. So accordingly, I think information security professional also has to adapt to that speed and also need to be moving with that same pace, advancing the information security using the data analytics and AI. So so I have my colleagues and seasoned security professionals. So probably I would begin with Mr. Shafiullah. I don't see Shafiullah in this panel. Is he there?
Zia, Shafiullah is facing some technical challenges. Meanwhile, we can proceed towards the next panelist.
Great. Okay, so let me go ahead with Samson. So Samson, what do you think? How effective is the artificial intelligence in enabling a business to evolve in the marketplace?
So Ziauddin, can you hear me?
Sure, yes. Go ahead, Samson.
Great. Immediately you talk about artificial intelligence, it reminds me of a small community somewhere in Ghana, in the northern part of Ghana, where people just engage each other on finding the best way to have sustainable farming. Why? Because they have to apply both traditional way of thinking and convert that into how to use land to the best way of cultivating crops. That already is the basics of artificial intelligence. Why? Because it's this type of knowledge that we have built into computers into this modern world, and we continue to evolve from that. So I always want to make sure when we start talking about artificial intelligence, we talk about machine learning, deep learning. All these technical topics are very crucial if we make it very simple for our colleagues or our service line colleagues who we interact with very frequently, our suppliers and our customers, to understand that. Right? For me, this is very important. And my thoughts on the subject is that we have to constantly utilize solutions where systems interact with each other in a safe, either cloud-based environment or sustainable and strong interfaces that enable the seamless flow of data. This is how I think this subject can grow on. This is how I see our organizations and businesses, especially in the Gulf, which is becoming a very strong marketplace for global trade to really operate in. So I hope that sets the ball rolling on the discussions, Ziauddin.
Yeah. I think that's a great point, Samson. So if I want to summarize, what you're saying is, artificial intelligence is something which we have to make it simple and ensure that our business and our technical folks and our business folks understand how effectively I am going to make use of this artificial intelligence in my day-to-day business, day-to-day life, and how I am going to contribute to the business growth by using the artificial intelligence, right? So if I want to summarize that, I think great. I think you have touched upon on a good point. So I think now we have to also understand what are the firm's challenges as well, right? So I want to ask Mr. Arshad, what do you think are the challenges and readiness as the organization transform their security posture while migrating to cloud and using the data analytics and AI services? Would you like to throw some light on that, Mr. Arshad?
Hi, Zia. Thank you for asking me this question. I would definitely like to emphasize how and what kind of challenges we might face when we are trying to incubate the artificial intelligence-based solutions, precisely which requires data analytics, as well as the machine learning technology, of course. So the main thing which we face in practical scenario is the use of legacy systems. So what I have noticed personally that if you talk about some critical sectors such as oil and gas and energy, all these sectors, usually they have legacy systems, and it is very difficult to upgrade and maintain those systems. So in order to achieve such kind of level where we can implement the ICS OT-based cybersecurity solutions, which have the ability to read the proper information, and there has to be some kind of level which has to be matched. So it is not that quite easy. Usually, what happens? The data which we generally ingest into the machine learning platforms, that is raw. It's not in proper format. So formatting has to be required. So then thereafter, the correlation, that is another fundamental topic where it has to be properly ingested in order to read and analyze the data. So if you see, this is completely the compatibility problem. And in order to, suppose if we are going to the cloud technologies, like when we talk about, we have a logarithm or we have Palo Alto-based solutions. So in order to use that, first thing is the compliance. Some firms, they don't want to share data with cloud technologies because of some risk and compliance from the government, right? So in that case, hybrid technology, hybrid cloud is something which we can use. But even though I have seen it creates a lot of false positive as well. In practical scenario, it takes a lot of time to optimize and fine-tune the solutions and to get the desired result. So usually these type of problems we always face, and it is very critical and crucial to optimize the system to gain the desired result, because the moment we implement it, we have to see the behavior of the system, because the machine learning it will create and take action on every different false positive alerts. So we have to optimize it in a proper fashion in that case.
Yes, I completely agree on that point, because even though we want to move to a pace and we want to move towards the digital transformation, but legacy systems will also be there in the organization, and we have to ensure that security is provided to those legacy systems as well, because we cannot leave those systems saying that we are advancing towards the advanced technology, and we are not going to protect those systems, because those are also the part of our organization. Those are still part of the business. So we have to ensure that there is a balance where I am moving towards this advanced technology and AI, but at the same time I am protecting my legacy systems as well in proper manner to defend it. Right. Great point.
And
yes.
In fact, what I have noticed, there has been some particular type of research that instead of all these challenges and problems, most of the organization are still wanting to go for this. because we cannot, because these days, if you talk about certain type of attack, or maybe it's a kind of Trojan, or it's a malware based, or maybe machine learning based ransomware attack, right? It uses that machine learning to attack in a proper fashion. So in order to get an edge over those attacks, we have to use these technologies. We cannot just leave it and use the legacy system.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. Yeah. Great point. I will come back to you on that, Arshad, with a follow-up question. Let me ask another question to my colleague, Mr. Mohammed. So what are the AI use cases that you see are there in the cybersecurity? Would you like to just throw some thoughts on that?
Thank you, Zia, for the question. I would maybe start by a fact where there's an expected, by the year, the 2022, there's an expectation of, the global information security expenses to reach something around $170 billion, right? And with that, there's emphasis actually on what the cybersecurity as an industry would come up with to be more innovative, effective in terms of maybe detection and response and so on. And luckily, we do have, as part of the overall AI umbrella, a lot of use cases that are being built now within known technologies. There are plenty of them. Some of them are already in place, and vendors are already, marketing for them. They're being tested. They're actually effective. Some others, they're ideas, and perhaps now they're just, let's say, in a basic state. So I'm just going to maybe mention 4 of them quickly. So, for example, the first use case, and by the way, all of the use cases are based on the fact that there are a lot of traffic. There is a lot of data related to security, logs, things happening by users, for users, to users. I mean, there are a lot of things really that it is merely impossible for an actual person or a security analyst to actually go and search and try to map and correlate all of this together. Of course, I mean, a lot of things are already there in place with correlation, like the SIEM solution and so on. But then the amount of information is getting to a point where it is almost impossible to get data out of data to even predict and protect from an attack before it even happens, right? So the first use case, for example, if you take the network, you have a lot of traffic coming in, going out, egress, extensive resources are really needed in terms of resources and even technology to look at each kind of channel, communications, transactions, the connections happening already, the policies applied, the application traffic related, right? So somehow this is the first use case where you put in AI. And of course, when I say AI, by the way, just maybe something that Samson mentioned as well, it's the umbrella. So whether it is AI, machine learning, or deep learning, and so on. So something to actually support to go into that, or challenge and go into the traffic, mine all those suspicious activities and classify them even in terms of types of threats, and then just presenting that to an analyst so it can actually be looked at. So network threat analysis is the first use case. Now, second use case would be malware detection. And malware, as we know, generally it's just the umbrella, right, for whatever is malicious code or software, virus, or whatever it can actually harm our systems or enterprise, right? So it's been there for decades now, right? So we can't really say malware detection wasn't there. However, it was used, based on signature mechanisms, basically, to map that to specific signature-based systems, going a bit with behavioral in the last few, years, right? But then perhaps we wanted to go from that into inference, really, and somehow just to go through all of that data and to try to analyze the types, the sources, the outcomes, right? And then to predict even the malicious files before they're actually opened, right? So this is just in a high level. Third one would be we know that there's a lot of analysts working on tedious jobs, repetitive jobs. And at the same time, what about like having that baseline of security so we can actually detect anomalies? So those are two let's say, use cases within security analyst augmentation, if we want to put it as a use case. So AI would actually automate everything that is repetitive instead of actually someone looking at it, which is actually something that can just be done automatically. And at the same time, if we take machine learning, then that would actually take care of the baseline in terms of threat intelligence. And perhaps the last use case that I want to just mention is threat mitigation, right? So not only to detect threats, which we just mentioned earlier, but what about actually having a mechanism to be able to actually sift into all, the attacks, machine learning algorithms, understand from other companies as well, identify weak points, and then based on that, we would be in a better position to even predict threats before they actually happen. So that's more or less like one of those main four use cases for AI.
This is an excellent point, Mohammed. So I completely agree because, being in Cyber Defense Center, probably you see always, billions of events are getting processed, and, our
Absolutely.
Security Operations Center and analysts are actually looking at those events on a continuous basis. How do we ensure that those, routine events gets automated by way of AI?
Right.
And apply them on the network traffic or malware detection, threat mitigation? I think that would be an excellent use case to consider. So it's a good
Absolutely.
point. We'll come back on that, Mohammed, again.
Right.
I have Shafiullah also with me. Shafiullah being expert in transforming the on-prem to cloud journey. So probably I would want to throw one question to Shafiullah as well. How does the security posture look when an organization is embracing digital transformation journey?
Thanks, Zia. Hi, everyone. Yeah, it's it's more of an interesting topic, right? So today, if you walk into any of the organization, you hear this fancy word, digital transformation, right? Fundamentally, it's very important, like, is the organization ready for a change in the landscape, change in the technology landscape? That's the first question that comes into mind when any organization is embracing digital transformation. So disruptive technology opens doors for different attacks vectors, right? Because what happens here is there's a lot of cloud a lot of companies adapting to the cloud, a lot of technologies incorporating from artificial intelligence, big data. So more and more new technology comes into the space. Your landscape changes, your attack vector grows, right? We've been talking about on-premises kind of environment. Today, if you see, there are organizations where they don't have a data center. They just get a service from in a SaaS model, pure SaaS model. And these services are backed by intelligence, backed by a huge data repository sitting in the cloud. So that's the way the real data transformation or the digital data journey started, right? So are we ready to defend and protect our digital footprint? That's the top question needs to be asked when any company or any organization is embracing into the digital transformation. So in order to ensure that our footprint is followed in a right path during the digital transformation, the risk management comes into the picture. So security and risk management must be an integral part for any digital transformation journey. Those days we remember, security used to be a silo, right? And today, if you see the transformation, cybersecurity is something like a boardroom talk. The CEO wants to hear from cybersecurity, like what, even making any, even before they make any business decisions. Cybersecurity, they come and collaborate with cybersecurity. They hear us like, okay, is it worth getting into or incorporating or bringing new technology into organization? So that is the level of influence that cybersecurity today we are applying on the business side. So I want to give some examples around the ways things are changing on the IT landscape. the traditional authentication mechanism is completely gone. There's no more AD. Today we are talking about social media integrations like Google, like we have Facebook integrations. Where, if I'm sending some external, if I want to collaborate with external partners, I'm opening up my authentication with third-party authentication providers, right? Like, so that is one thing which is coming up. The other one is the cloud adaptability, which I spoke to you guys. So that is the faster. The cloud has something called cloud burst, right? So which means like it gives a comprehensive, a flexible approach for the client. Like if they want to grow on an expansional growth, cloud is the only option, and they can scale down. It's more like you can scale up 1 month, scale down the other month. So costing is coming into a perfect dimension there. So most companies have started adapting to the cloud journey. Social media influencers are becoming stronger these days. Companies are shifting the complete marketing strategy to a digital marketing. So most of the marketing today are happening through these platforms. Mobile application development is now the core part of IT security, because any app like today, maybe down the line, maybe 1 or 2 years, you will not see web browsers. You see apps loaded on your phone. So everything is being catered through the apps, right? So one piece on the digital transformation is if you are bringing in more apps, there is a lot of integrations required. So once you bring in the integrations, you're opening up your APIs, right? So which is like you're inventing a lot of inherited risk, which means you're bringing in more risk to your organization. So at each layer, there should be a checkpoint. So and we have been hearing very commonly that there are something called smart homes. Smart devices, right? You control your home from your mobile. You sit anywhere. You control your office from your home. You have your own atmosphere, right? So these things, again, you're opening up your channel. You're opening up your network to the cloud. So again, because there's an intelligence sitting in the back end, right? So there are a lot of new threats, new cyber. There's a new way the cybersecurity the security can impact you. So we need to apply proper checkpoints at various levels to ensure that there are proper validations happening on the controls. That's one very important thing. Next is today, very commonly, the L1 is getting translated into chatbots. I myself had one case where I was trying to book a doctor's appointment. When I was calling a call center, it was going through a constant loop, like please wait, all my agents are busy, right? And at the same time, they gave me a message that please download our app and book your appointment. When I downloaded the app, it just took like a minute for me to book an appointment. It was more of a chatbot. It asked me like, what is the doctor name you want to visit? It listed all the available doctors, pick number one or number two. Okay, and then what time you prefer. It listed all the available time slot, and next it asked me like, do you want any other services from the hospital? And finally, if I say everything is completed, yes, I got an email, I got a SMS confirmation that your appointment is booked. So it's more easier. Similarly, bankings today, bankings are adapting to more of a voice chatbots, right? We used to type, but now it's more of a voice recognition chatbots, which is making our life more simpler. And again, there are hidden cybersecurity frauds happening around these space, but it all depends on how we are, adopting some of the security controls around those space. That is also very, very important. The last one is the data-centric analytics, which is now becoming a big talk in bigger organizations, like how the data are being used, how the data are being mined, how you can get some valuable business opportunity from the data which is spreading into your organization. So most organizations, they collaborate externally, right? So some organizations have offices in different regions. So that is also now becoming a big talk, where you need to enforce some kind of a data restrictions, considering heavy data regulations coming around GDPR, around ADGM, around local data privacy acts. So there are a lot of, when we step off food front, right, definitely there's a lot of attacks surrounded by those footprints. So we need to ensure that, when we are stepping into a new digital era, the security also needs to travel along with that. So as and when we are started opening up our channels, as and when we are adapting a new technology into our landscape, definitely the cyber threat is going to be high, but we need to counterattack it. So what the conclusion here is, you need to redraw your strategy. Your cybersecurity strategy needs to be redrawn. And the cybersecurity is a horizontal function, right? So it needs to be traveling in the same speed how the digital transformation, how the business wants to do a digital transformation. So it should partner. So the best word I would say is cybersecurity needs to partner with the business to ensure that the data transformation or the digital transformation journey is going to be successful. So cybersecurity, the traditional way of looking cybersecurity is not it's more of a showstopper, right? They say that cybersecurity is a showstopper, but today it's nice. I'm hearing a good feedback on a lot of digital space that cybersecurity is becoming a business enabler, a digital enabler, right? So more of a partnership, more of a collaboration, more of a security or redesigned strategy is important at this stage to get a successful digital transformation for an organization.
Excellent point, Shafiullah, and I just want to add, a couple of my thoughts to it. As the organization is moving towards digital, I think the threat landscape has completely changed, right? From that perspective, and you have rightly mentioned the point that we have to change our strategy as well. So one of the point which I think is also important is we have to ensure that our different functions within the information security are also closely aligned, right? We cannot have risk management function, sitting at one corner and he's not aware as to what's going on in the, cyber defense space. If there is an incident, what's happening over there? How are we defending the incident? How are we handling that particular scenario? My security testing team need to be aware, what is my risk, right? Where is my risk? Because that has been done by my risk management team. Am I doing the right testing to ensure that, the risk which was addressed is not just lying on the paper? It's also been, passed on for me to go and do the security testing continuously. I think we also need to ensure that all of our different security functions are closely aligned, tightly integrated, and they all are supporting the business, and at the same time ensuring that the information security is rightly kind of maintained, and right balance is there, and that message is also going to our board and the senior leadership that there is sufficient assurance that security is being handled correctly by the right folks, right?
That's right.
Very good point. Yeah. So I'll come back to you, Shafiullah. I have one question for you. I'll just want to go to Samson again and want to ask, how can data security play an integral part of transformation of an ERP? Samson?
Yes, I think I was beginning to talk to myself. We will never get past this mute microphone issue until we are in a physical environment.
Yeah, right.
When a company is going through a transformation, as I picked up, I made some notes whilst other panelists were speaking. Digital transformation is very, very fancy word, so to speak, because there's a lot of heavy lifting that has to be done in the background. And one of the key points that a company should never overlook is coexistence. You talk about the legacy applications, and you talk about the new wave of applications that are coming through. Now, we've just been through one of the biggest transformations in the company's history, and it happened a lot with the engagement of our staff, our operations teams, to enable us move from an old way of working to a new way of working. And whilst we did that, a lot of APIs, maybe just for the sake of our audience, application program interfaces, standard interfaces, looking at other enable solutions such as blockchain solutions, connectivity platforms, were all shifted. That needs to happen seamlessly. And when you do that, you also interact with different suppliers. In our line of work, we deal a lot with vessels, airlines, and trucking companies. And if we look in the Gulf, there's a growing, in fact, a tremendous market between the regions of over land, trucks moving from Qatar to Oman and vice versa, and also going through Saudi Arabia to the UAE. And this is growing. So through the transformation journey that we've been engaging, these players are sharing information. Now, everything from Trojans, worms, from poor coding, raw data, that feeds into our systems. So you need to have a very clear and structured disaster recovery approach. You need to have a clear and structured risk prevention approach or risk aversion approach. And in terms of risk aversion, what type of equipment are you using? What are your service providers? Are you consolidating your applications? Because if you consolidate the applications and you know what is your whole enterprise resource planning architecture, then there's hope. Because we've seen it in several times that there is a breach in one supplier system, and immediately you need to know which of your APIs have a potential risk of that risk entering your ERP space, right? Yeah. So that's so from the back end, I'd say that's the key thing we need to look at. Now, our staff work a lot, our colleagues and suppliers work a lot with emails. We also know that emails time to time get flagged when they've been filtered into some type of account, or somebody mistakenly used a company account, for example, for registering on a certain website. That exposes also the company. And throughout the transformation journey, we also need to heavily engage our people. Engage them to understand the key front end of our security apparatus, right? Don't click on links you don't know. Pay attention to the email subject line. Pay attention to the signatories, because all these things sometimes become open clickbaits, and we need to ensure that our people are also playing their bit, adding some 5-10%, to ensure that our cloud environment, our IT infrastructure, our IT systems are all safe, and that our collaborative platforms continue to fulfill the customer service, the customer promise. You know, we are in the service industry, and a lot of what all our colleagues do are delivering services which are quite crucial, whether it's in the banking, finance, or even more importantly these days, the logistics industry, which we come from. We need to make sure.
Sorry. So yeah, I got your point. In the interest of time, Samson, I have to pause you for a moment. But I think I took your point. So you know, it's important that we transform the people as well to ensure that our digital transformation journey is successful, right? So yeah, I have another question for Mr. Arshad. I think there's a lot of buzzword for zero trust model, right? So yeah, would you like to throw some light in terms of what is the impact of data analytics and AI for achieving in-depth security and zero trust model for any critical organization?
Yeah, thank you. See, this is very important for any organization. I would definitely take the case of the sector where I have worked and I have gained experience. I have realized that it's not at all possible to integrate with the cloud solution completely, which are running the data analytics or machine learning. The reason being, most of the firms, they want to keep their data private, right? So in this case, the transformation which we are talking about right now, we could take a step further and we could engage machine learning or data analysis in a manner where we could limit the data sharing. Hybrid cloud, this is what I have explained earlier as well. What happens in ICS and OT environment, because we have multiple systems which are suppose maybe sensors or some kind of wireless devices which are sharing data with each controller within the perimeter itself. So these wireless devices could be hacked at any point of time, whether they are running the TCP/IP stack or they are running any RSC-based compliant standards. But there's always possibility of getting hacked. And these sensors, they generate a huge amount of data again. So it is very difficult to consolidate the information and get the proper logging. So here, machine learning and data analytics, of course, will help in getting the insight into the logs, how we can relate the information. And when, suppose if we have a same solution, we can relate the logs. I don't care if the information is being sent out on a network or being sent outside, but still, if we incubate the machine learning within the premises, then we can get the desired result, and we can see what kind of threat actors are acting. Because the recent attacks, if you talk about the US gas pipeline attack, right, and the one happened to Aramco, so somehow they used the advanced technology which completely have broken the system. So in this case, we could definitely go for the solutions which are hybrid in type, and along with that, we can just work upon the vulnerability management using the machine learning and analytics. That could be our best option.
Great. So one last question for Mr. Mohammed. How can we secure data used in AI initiatives and projects? Mr. Mohammed, you're there?
I hope.
Yes.
Okay. I think just like what Samson mentioned, we're not going to get rid of this mute issue. But yeah, so I think that the simple answer would be to have security in place. If we look at this from maybe a very high level abstract approach, I would say generally we're talking about data sources, and then we're talking about those platform or data, let's say that the processors, and eventually data out of data, right? The insights that we're going to get, regardless of the use case, regardless of generally how it works, just in a very abstract level. Now, if we look from data protection perspective, the data sources would have gazillions of data elements, and quite frankly, a lot of times it would be just easier just to throw all of that right, and to be sent through APIs to the platforms. However, definitely that's not secure. So I would say the first measure or control is to make sure that you're only sending the required data. Not easy, of course.
I agree.
It's a project on its own, really, unless if you already have in place those gates. So it becomes just very easy to tag, I want this, this, and that, and it becomes easier. But what I've seen so far, usually this is not the case unless already people went through this at least one time, or maybe there was a similar project. The second point would be data on the cloud or on that platform. And this depends on the ready-made security consoles within that platform. So some SaaS providers, they're already like GDPR aware. They have technologies to strip out, to identify and strip out personal information, and there are a lot of things that can be utilized. However, a lot of them as well, they don't really have any security measures per se. They have security measures based on for the infrastructure, right? But then not on a data level. So this is where the due diligence needs to happen from the client side. And the last part is data out of data. And I guess if you really think about what is more important, I guess it's that last part, protecting the insights that's going to come out of those, AI processing and analysis. And this is where it is tricky. Where is it going to be stored on the cloud? So I need to make sure that really part of the due diligence, even auditing, that's going to be secured in a way or another, or is it going to be coming back through an API to a platform that I control? And in that case, maybe it's going to be much easier, I would say.
Great. Before we wind up, I just want to ask one question to Shafiullah. How do we ensure the vulnerabilities are addressed while we are migrating to the cloud? How do we protect infrastructure through vulnerabilities when we are moving to cloud?
Okay, so yeah, that's again a very interesting question because we don't want to carry the same level of vulnerability what we have
Right.
beyond the
Right.
greenfield
Right.
environment, right?
Yeah.
So okay, so there are two areas we need to look at. So one, you're building a greenfield area in the cloud, so we need to ensure that there is no any new vulnerabilities or new threats identified. That's number one. Number two, when you are moving the system, you need to ensure whether, see, you may be running some legacy systems, right? So legacy systems are the one, we call it as a threat vector because that itself is a threat vector because there's no protection, there's no patching, there's nothing happening around that, right? So we need to, we need to adapt a strategy here. Like, when we are doing such migrations, we should first of all, cut off those dependencies. So legacy system should never be migrated to a greenfield area. That's number one. Number two, the threat vector is completely different now. Your threat landscape is completely different. So your cloud threat vector is completely different. Your your existing data center is completely different. So when you are moving into a new environment, you need to ensure that whatever the vulnerabilities you have been existing on the current environment is not going to be the same what is going to be on the cloud. So you're going to do a due diligence. You're going to do a service-based migration. So as and when you do a migration, you're going to look into all the risk existing risk register, or like what are the existing risks is being captured. That's number one. Number two, you're going to see what is your vulnerability level, right? So you're going to do a pre-vulnerability assessment on the current infrastructure. Once you migrate your data, you're going to do a post-VA assessment on your infrastructure. That's two. So third one, you're going to relook into the access, privilege access, because now the cloud is a new environment altogether. So how you're going to provide a permission, or what is the collaboration points or touch points required. So these are the factors which you need to consider. So and the most important thing is, as rightly Mohammed and other panel speakers they pointed out, we need to do a complete due diligence exercise, not only with our internal environment. We also need to do a due diligence exercise on the third-party service providers as well, because that's very important. So we always see a supply chain attack happening in multiple forms, right? So when you're in clouds, you're highly vulnerable to supply chain attacks. So that is the area where you need to focus. As I told you in the beginning of this conversation, the threat landscape is completely different from one premises to the other. So if you're moving into the cloud, there's a separate landscape for that, threat landscape for that. Yeah. So these are some areas that you need to point it out.
Thank you so much. In the interest of the time, I think we need to wind up. I would just quickly like to conclude and some food for thoughts for our audiences as well. I think as the threat landscape is changing, we need to see how we tightly integrate the information security functions. How do we ensure we have the right use of AI into an environment, like using the network traffic analysis, while doing the malware analysis, while doing threat mitigation, identification. How do we ensure that we have the hybrid model type of infrastructure in place? How do we ensure the legacy systems are protected? And how do we support the business here? So with this, I would leave this to our organizers to take it forward. Thank you all for the panel members. Excellent thought. I think it was a very good, fruitful discussion. Looking forward to have more such discussions in the future. Thank you. Over to you, Bijay. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you, dear Ziauddin, for brilliantly summarizing the main points towards the end. Thanks, Arshad, Mohammed, Shafiullah, and Samson for sharing your unmatched knowledge on cybersecurity. Thank you from my entire team for joining us today. We appreciate your support towards the summit. Thanks once again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With this, dear all, we have reached the end of the QCC Summit 2021. And please allow me 5 minutes to conclude the summit. Dear participants, what a wonderful 2-day summit QATAR Hybrid Cloud and Cybersecurity Summit 2021 has turned out to be. We had the honor of having our honorable chief guest, Mr. Ofa AlAbbadi from MOTC Qatar, Mr. Samir Navaskar, senior cybersecurity expert from a government agency Qatar, and our guest of honor, Mr. Ahmed El Raghi from IT Arab, and also Dr. Saud Humed Salim Al-Sohaili, DG of Policies and Governance Department and Head of National Space, Ministry of Transport, Communications and Information Technology, Oman. Lastly, dear all, the Qatar Hybrid Cloud and Cybersecurity Summit is organized by the rendezvous experts and powered by Microsoft in partnership with lead sponsor Oracle, platinum sponsor Oracle, platinum sponsor Cloud4C and Darktrace, strategic partner Aruba AHPE Company, data protection partners Veritas and Manai Trading, gold partners Manage Engine, Software AG, and Nozomi Networks. Do visit their booths today, which is the last day of the summit, only until 6 p.m. Qatar time. The booths will be accessible for you all. Do drop your questions in the chat box or email us, and we will get it answered as soon as possible. Naveen, before I thank the state of Qatar, do you have any last inputs?
It's been a fantastic 2 days. All I would say is thank all the panelists and speakers and also our sponsors, which you did. And also a special thank you to the team of Trex. In fact, a few names that I would mention, Nitin Edgar Meneses, along with Deepa Carvalho and Mr. Rosario, who made this initiative happen. In fact, I feel it's a huge success already. Yeah, and thank you, Bridget, for hosting this. So that's it for me.
Thanks, Navi, and thanks to you also for all the efforts that you have put in. We truly appreciate that as a team. And lastly, thanks to the state of Qatar for their endless support. Until we meet again, goodbye from the entire team of the QCC Summit, and see you all soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.